We're getting really close to the end of the book. There's only 5 chapters left, and I'm going to read chapters 21 and 22. Then one morning, Etienne returned. Matt had been waiting, watching the forest trail impatiently, unwilling to go far from the cabin, lest he miss the boys coming. But when he finally saw Etienne approaching, his heart sank. Etienne was not alone. His grandfather stalked by his side. Matt sensed that this meant trouble. Perhaps Saknus had come to reproach him. He would surely know that the 2 boys had been neglecting their lessons. Dreading to face the old man, Matt walked out to meet him, courteously giving him the greeting he had learned. Saknus returned his greeting with dignity. He did not smile. His solemn face made Matt's heart sink still lower. And startled, Matt turned toward Etienne. He did not dare to ask a question, but he saw at once that there was no need to ask. No doubt about it, Etienne had found his Manitou. He had changed. He stood straighter and taller. He looked older, and Matt suddenly realized why. The black hair, which had always hung straight down, almost to his shoulders, was shaved away. His scalp, like his grandfather's, was bare, except for a single patch running from the back of his forehead and braided into a top knot, fastened with red string. Like the fresh bear grease that glistened on his skin, pride glistened all over him. Moreover, he carried a gleaming new rifle. "You got a gun," Matt cried, politeness forgotten. "My grandfather traded many beaver skin," Etienne answered. Though he had in these last days become a man, he had not learned altogether to hide his feelings. He did not say more. He waited now for his grandfather to speak. The old man's face was grave, but he did not ask about the lessons. "Time of sun grows shorter," he said, "like footsteps on bird, soon ice on water." "I know it's October," Matt said, "maybe November." He had not wanted to count his sticks these last week. "Indian go north now," Saknus continued. "Hunt moose. All Indians go. Etienne not come to learn white man's signs." Matt could not answer. "White father not come?" Saknus went on. Matt spoke quickly. "He ought to be here any day now." Saknus looked at him soberly. "Maybe him not come." "Matt," he said quietly. Anger flared up in Matt. He could not allow the man to speak the fear that he had never dared to admit to himself. "Of course he'll come," he said too loudly. "He might even come today." "Snow come soon. Not good white boy stay here alone. White boy come with Indian." Matt stared at him. Did he mean go on the hunt with them? The most important hunt of the year? Saknus smiled for the first time. Saknus teach white boy to hunt moose like Etienne. White boy and Etienne be like brother. A sudden joyful hope sprang into Matt's mind. He realized at this moment just how anxious he had been. This was a way out. He did not have to stay here alone through the winter. And as swiftly as it had come, this new hope died away. In spite of his longing, in spite of being afraid, he knew what he had to answer. "Thank you," he said. "I'd really like to go on the hunt, but I can't do that. When my father comes, he would not know where I'd gone. Leave white man's writing." Matt swallowed hard. "Something might happen to the cabin. He's trusting me to take care of it." "Maybe him not come," Saknus said again, not smiling now. "He'll be here soon," Matt insisted. He was ashamed that his voice broke in the middle of the word. "If he couldn't come, he'd send somebody to tell me. He'd find some way, no matter what happened. You don't know my pa." Saknus was silent for some time. "White boy good son," he said at last. "Better you come. Saknus glad for white boy beast not queenness." Matt could only keep shaking his head. The man's word brought a great lump in his throat. "Thank you," he managed. "You have been very good to me, but I have to stay here." Without another word, Saknus held out his hand. Matt put his own hand in that bony grasp. Then the 2 Indians turned and went away. Etienne had not even said goodbye. There would be no lesson that morning, no story. No tramping in the forest or fishing, not this morning or any other morning. Close to panic, Matt wanted to run after them. He wanted to tell them that he'd changed his mind, that he would go with them anywhere rather than stay here alone with winter coming on. But he set his jaw tight and stayed where he was. After a few minutes, he reached for his axe and fell to splitting logs with a fury. He couldn't help from thinking, however, was he being foolish or stubborn? Wasn't going with them the wisest thing he could have done? Wouldn't his father understood? He remembered hearing that many white men and white women, too, who had been captured by these Indians, had lived many years in the wild wilderness, did not want to return to the white world when they had a chance, but had chosen instead to live with the Indians. He never understood that, but now he could see very well how that might happen. He no longer distrusted them. He knew that Etienne and his grandfather would be kind, that even the grandmother would make him welcome, and that they would share with him whatever they had, no matter how little. He had found friendship and goodwill in their cabin. He envied Etienne his free, unhampered life in the forest, and the boisterous comradeship in the village. If he had been taken captive as a child and raised as an Indian boy, how would he himself been chosen? It would be the same to make the choice deliberately. He was proud that they wanted him to live with them, but he knew he could never really be proud, as Etienne was proud of being a hunter. He belonged to his own people. He was bound to his own family, as Etienne was bound to his grandfather. The thought that he might never see his mother again was sharper than hunger and loneliness. This was the land his father had cleared to make a home for them all. It was his land, too. He could not run away. He was troubled that Etienne had walked away without a word of farewell. Had he been offended? Had he really wanted Matt to go with them? To be a brother? Or was he just obeying his grandfather as he had to do about the lessons? It was hard to tell what Etienne was thinking. Etienne had become a hunter. He had a gun. He would not have time now to wander through the forest or listen to stories. He would not have to bother any longer with the white boy, who would never really be a mighty hunter. But surely Etienne could have held out his hand as his grandfather had done. Chapter 22. Every morning, in spite of himself, Matt kept an eye out for Etienne. When 4 days had gone by, he decided there was little chance he would ever see his friend again. Doubtless the Indians had already left the village and were on their way north. So when he saw Etienne coming through the woods with his dog at his heels, he ran across the clearing to meet him, not bothering to hide his relief and pleasure. "You think different?" Etienne asked quickly. "You go with us?" Matt's eagerness died away. "No," he said unhappily. "Please try to understand, Etienne. I must wait for my father." Etienne nodded. "I understand," he said. "My grandfather understands too. I'd do same for my father if he's still alive." The two boys stood looking at each other. There was no amusement and no scorn in Etienne's eyes. How very strange, Matt thought. After all the brave deeds he had dreamed of to win this boy's respect, he had gained it at last by doing nothing, just by staying here and refusing to leave. "My grandfather sent you a gift," Etienne said now. He unstrapped from his back a pair of snowshoes. They were new, the wood smooth and polished, the netting of deerhide woven into a neat design. Before Matt could find words, Etienne went on. "My grandmother sent gift," he said. He took from his pouch a small birch basket of maple sugar. Late in the season like this, Matt knew sugar was scarce and dear to the Indians. "Thank you," he said. "Tell your grandmother that when you come back, I'll help her gather more sap for her." Etienne was silent. "Not come back," he said. "In the spring, I mean, when the hunt is over." "Not come back," Etienne repeated. "Not live in village again. Our people find new hunting ground." "But this is your home." "My people hunters. My grandfather say many white men come soon, cut down trees, make house, plant corn, where my people hunt." What could Matt answer to this? He had only one argument to offer. "Your grandfather wants you to learn to read," he reminded Etienne. "I haven't been much of a teacher, but when my family comes, it will be different. My mother will teach you to read, and write too." "What for I read?" "My grandfather mighty hunter, my father mighty hunter. They not read." Your grandfather wants you to be able to understand treaties, Matt insisted. We go far away. No white man. No need sign paper. An uncomfortable doubt had long been troubling Matt. Now, before Etienne went away, he had to know. This land, he said slowly, this place where my father built his cabin, did it belong to your grandfather? Did he own it once? How one man own ground? Etienne questioned. Well, my father owns it now. He bought it. I don't understand, Etienne scowled. How can man own land? Land same as air. Land for people to live on. For beaver and deer. Does deer own land? How could he explain? Matt wondered, to someone who did not want to understand. And somewhere in the back of his mind there was a sudden suspicion that Etienne was making sense, and he was not. It was better not to talk about it. Instead he asked, Where will you go? My grandfather say much forest where sun go down. White men not come so far. To the west. Matt had heard his father talk about the west. There was good land there for the taking. Some of the neighbors in Quincy had chosen to go west instead of buying land in Maine. How could he tell Etienne that there would be white men there too? Still, they said there was no end of land in the west. He reckoned there must be enough for both white men and Indians. Before he could think of what to say, Etienne spoke again. I give you gift, he said. Dog like you. I tell him stay with you. You mean you're not taking him with you? No good for hunt, Etienne said. Walk slow now. Good for stay here with Madabi, with white brother. Etienne's careless words did not deceive Matt. He knew very well how Etienne felt about that no good dog that followed him about everywhere he went. And Etienne had said white brother. Matt could not find the words he needed, but he knew there was something he must do. He had to have a gift for Etienne, and he had nothing to give. Nothing at all that belonged to him. Robinson Crusoe? What could that mean to a boy who would never learn to read it? He did have one thing. And the thought of it, something twisted in his stomach. But it was the only thing that could possibly match the gift Etienne had given him. Wait here, he told Etienne. He went into the cabin and took down the tin box. The watch was ticking away inside it. He had never forgotten to wind it, even when he was too tired to not just stick. Now he lifted it out and held it in his hand, the way he had held it when his father had given it to him, as though it were a fragile bird's egg. His father would never understand. Before he could think about it one more minute, Matt hurried back to where Etienne stood waiting. I have a gift for you, he said. It tells the time of day, and I'll show you how to wind it up. Etienne held the watch even more carefully. There was no mistaking that he was pleased and impressed. Probably, Matt thought, Etienne would never learn to use it. The sun and the shadows of the trees told him all he needed to know about the time of day, but Etienne knew that Matt's gift was important. Fine gift, he said, and he put the watch very gently into his pouch. Then he held out his hand. Awkwardly, the two boys shook hands. Your father comes soon, Etienne said. I hope you get the biggest moose in Maine, Matt answered. Etienne turned and walked into the woods. The dog sprang up to follow him. Etienne motioned him back and uttered one stern order. Puzzled, the dog sank down and put his chin between his paws. As Etienne walked away, he whined softly, but he obeyed. Matt knelt down and put his hand on the dog's head. That's the end of chapter 22. Only 3 chapters left.